I'm going to talk about CRM WEB Development. This is like a guided tour through the points, integration point, customization points of CRM WEB. It's going to be not very detailed. It's going to just point out the different places you can actually go in and customize and integrate your stuff into CRM WEB. I'm going to talk a little bit about the concept of the page builder framework, which the CRM client is using. I'm going to talk a lot about the configuration files that comes along with that framework, because it's heavily based on configuration files. And I'm going to show you where to tap into the CRM WEB client to do your stuff. And this is only for on-site installations. These kind of customizations will not be available for online platform as of today. Yes. So, the CRM WEB, it's a highly configurable client. It was made with the point in mind was that this could be configurable, extensible, and it should be very structured for be able to manipulate the client using code or using merge files or replacement files for the configuration. It's very important that it is extensible in that sense that you can exchange components, parts of the UI with your own stuff. Also make completely new controls like effects box. Exchange basically almost every component in the CRM WEB if should be possible. So, these are a few of our integration points in the client. On the left side you have the configuration configuration files you can configure, and on the right side is the code you can exchange with your own components. In the configuration we have something called the application configuration, which is a definition of what the application consists of. You have object mapping, which tells you which component is used for which components are the text box component. We have filters, that is a very important part of the framework, which manipulates the configurations. Pages is the definition of what you see in the client. We have the menus, the context menus, the file drop down, and everything is defined in a configuration file. And you have LinkHintTypes, which is what happens when you click and double click on a row in an archive. On the code side, we have you can script the client to an extent. You can add your own Ajax methods, which can be called from the script. You can make and exchange controls that is used. You can make and exchange data handlers, validations, and you can even make your own filters. So, what I'm gonna talk more about today is on the client side, that meaning the actual browser which the application runs in. We're going to show you how to add your own JavaScripts that you need when you make stuff. And on the web server app, I'm going to show you the different configuration and what you can do with the different configuration files. I'm going to show you the filters, how they work and how they affect the configuration files. I'm going to show you how to add a new control, make your own control and add that. Validation. So validation means the validation of the value of a control, basically. So I'm going to show you how to add a validation to an existing field in the standard client, and I'm going to show you how to make your own validation. And I'm going to show you the data handlers, and that is what controls the data in a certain page. How to add it, how to extend an existing one and add your own stuff. I'm also going to talk about, just show you a little bit about scripting in NetServer, archive providers and MDO providers, that you actually can make those. I'm not going to go not near the details of how that is working, but I'm going to show you that just how that is possible. So let's start on the configurations files. So, like I said, the configuration files, there's a configuration file for basically everything in the client. There's a page configuration, which defines what you're looking at any given time. Like a contact has a page configuration, project has a page configuration, person, and so on. These pages need to be registered in the application setting to be able to, so the system knows about this page and can find it. So we have a application settings configuration file, which contains the pages, reference to the pages, the dialogues, the current, which I'm going to talk more about later, and also in that application settings file, you will also be able to register your own JavaScript files and CSS files for your custom customizations. We have a file for registering objects, components like controls, data handlers, everything that the framework needs to discover your component. We have a file for that you can add your stuff to. Same for the filters, which filters going to run on the configuration. And we have the linkhint mappings, which is the, like I said, the archive control uses. That is basically abstraction of the row has an entity name, and it has basically a link hint. And this link hint is resolved to a physical, like I'm going to execute this JavaScript when this link hint occurs. So here's the mappings for that, and you have all the menus, and you even have which column the archive providers should provide to the client. There's a huge XML file for that, which you can add your own stuff to, and I guess there's more. As you know, there's endless configuration files, but I'm going to talk about these listed here. So the page configuration file is what this is a complete page, and this consists of many different levels of UI. So you have, this is what we call the page. This is what we call a panel, and these around here are also panels. So a page consists of multiple panels. Inside the panel we have cards. These are the 3 cards that are our standard cards for the client. And inside the card, inside here is the view. So a card can consist of many views, as you see here. And inside the view we have control groups, which contains a group of controls, and then you have the smallest part is the control, which we have a lot of. So when when you click on the company icon on the left bar, what happens the first time on the server side is the configuration is fetched from the storage, usually a file. Then it's parsed through a lot of parsers in the net server, the configuration manager, which adds stuff, the data-driven UI. So it's building up the configuration, So when it goes through all these, it will end up quite different than what you have on the file, because it's going to resolve fragments, it's going to add data-driven UI, it's going to filter away again stuff, because in the context you are looking, things that are not needed are taken away. I'm going to show you that a little more in detail later. So the page builder, after it's gone through all the filters, put in the cache, runtime filters that is manipulating the XML based on the kind of context, who you are, where you're at, and what rights you have and stuff. The page builder will then transform this into actually objects, and it will, in the end, render out as HTML. So, this is probably what I said now. The page configuration is one file. The file contains reference to fragments or smaller portions of configuration that are then expanded into the page configuration. The data-driven stuff and the client state will then add their stuff. It will be cached first, and then you ask, how on earth is this possible to even? Doesn't this make it very, 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 very slow? And yes, it does. So what we do, we put it in. When you start your application for the first time, all of this is happening one time, and then it's stored in the database and in the application memory, in memory. So the full expansion of the configuration is then stored in the database and in the application memory. So the next time you recycle your application, it will stop because it will find it in the database already finished, and then it will put it in the application memory, and then the runtime filter will then be executed on the configuration only. And the next request in the same session will then just fetch it from memory. So it will skip all these things. That's why it actually been able to go around work. So, yes?
When does this cache reset the database? Or it's just...
you might have heard, I don't know how much you have worked with it, but we have this function called flush that you can send to your with your browser. That will clean out to the database.
Both caches?
Both caches, yes. Also, when we upgrade, we get a new version, it will also flush the caches.
Sometimes it doesn't help to flush. I can say many times when you have made changes, nothing happened with flush. You have to restart the IIS. Some things
for page
work.
configurations?
I mean, for SuperOffice, I'm not sure.
Yeah, because the flush is supposed to help on a lot of different caches.
Yeah, it works most of the time.
It certainly should work on this cache. There's a lot of other caches.
Change the privileges in rows.
Yeah, that's a different kind of cache.
Okay.
That I know there's caches that the application doesn't reload when you flush, so you need that ES reset. But we're kind of getting them more and more, but I know there's still some there that doesn't reset good.
If you press down Control F5, cache will be empty.
No,
The client.
the client browser cache
Browser.
only.
Does it matter where you put the flush in the URL?
Yeah, it should be just after default ASPX question mark flush, nothing
Yeah.
else.
So if you put flush at the end,
I don't know. You should you should always just use flush, not together with S protocol. You should do it alone. Yeah. Okay. So the reason we do fragments is, of course, we can reuse portion of the UI many times, different places. So that enables us to put a group of configuration several times in different pages, even on the same page. But we have a very strict naming convention that also naming, but also a very strict ID convention that you can't have a component with the same ID on the same page. Therefore, we have a system that you can add a fragment and kind of append different IDs on the different fragments when using the same fragment. I don't know if that makes sense, but I'll show you. Because here you have an example of all of pages are complete. They have a description for everything that is in this page. So when you ask for contact page, all of the menu, the buttons here, they are also defined in that page configuration. But it will be stupid to kind of do it for each page, like project, diary, sale, and that we need to define these over and over and over. So therefore we just reference them. So all of the pages in there, they reference these these three panels, sorry. And then usually they reference also the main entity is also a fragment, really. So this is then the physical file will be like this. So this the content of that file will then be expanded to the content of this file. And the convention here is that you have the name and you have the type. So when you put in a control group, it will be the name of the control and the type here. So this is typically what we do in the contact card. We use this section here for all these views. Instead of making duplicate configuration, we have put them in one file. So this is how we refer them in with ID update. This is how you can reuse a control group fragment several times in the same page. So like you have this header, you want it on many views in a card, then you can refer, you put this in and it will update all the IDs in that fragment will be updated with whatever you put in here. So then you get unique IDs on every component. Yeah. The other things, what I mentioned was that Net Server will also generate UI configuration based on data in the database. The most typical one is the web panels. So when you go into admin and you add the web panel, what actually happens is that the admin actually flushes the client and makes the web client go all the way down to the files with the fragments, and then going through a parser that finds out you have a web panel, I will add it, and then we have a place mark placeholders in the configuration that tells the parser you will put these web panels here, and then it generates configuration for the web panels. So the page builder framework has no knowledge of web panels per se. They just get a bunch of configuration that they parse like anything else. So, and we have a template for how a web panel should look like, and this is the that lives down in the net server. Yes. So, when you, like I said, the application configuration contains which pages are available for the client. And that's an example of how we define our pages. So this ID here is resolved to a file name, which we'll find on the server and do what I told you about, all the building up of the fragments and stuff. So when you're gonna add a page on your own, you have to add your page into this application settings file. The object mapping file is the file that tells the page framework that control of type SO text box is actually, you can find in this assembly with this assembly name. This is a panel, by the way, where this tells the page builder framework where to find SO panel. So because when you make a page, you don't refer in the configuration directly to object. You refer to a type, and the type is typically SO panel. And then in this object mapping file, this tells the page framework what is SO panel. Yeah, it's an object that lives in this assembly. We have an alternative way of telling the system where to find this object, and that is you can do it in code. You can decorate your class with SO web object with the name, and then this is the type name which you use in the configuration, and then you don't have to do anything here. This will be discovered by the framework when you start up, and then it will use this class for that type. Okay, let's talk a little bit about filters. They are important. The filters can add and remove fragments from the configuration. So the purpose of the filter, there are several purposes, but the main purpose is to reduce the output of the client to the client, enforcing the rules of what are you actually asking for, and do you have the rights and stuff based on who you are. So they are reducing the configuration based on the rights and what kind of context you are in. I'm going to go a little back, and I'm going to here. I cannot show this. What actually happens when you are in a context card and you click on edit or interest or more? What actually happens is that you send off an SO protocol to the server saying that I want to see the more tab on the contact card. The server then knows, the filter called context filter, then knows that, okay, we are already on the contact card, we have already rendered the other panels here, we have rendered this, we have rendered that. The only change here is this. So what happens then is that the filter will strip away everything that is not needed to re-render the page, and it will only generate objects for that little part of the UI, and then exchange that part of the DOM in the browser with the difference. So what happens is you get a huge amount of XML describing your page. That will potentially expand with the fragments and everything to an enormous XML. And then the filters will strip away everything that is not needed, and then it's rendered out. We have a lot of filters that do different things. The filter that actually strips away the parts that is not necessary to perform the last request render is called the context filter. The context filter knows that the state of the client and knows what to remove and what to keep. And it's very important. That's what makes it efficient, and that you don't do more than you need. You have a lot of filters that do like sentry rules, functional right rules, data filter that actually can enable and disable components based on the state of your session or your user preference or functional rights. So what we do is like you just add a functional right section on your control that says you need this functional right to enable this control, and it's actually this filter that makes the calculation of this component should be enabled or disabled. So that's how we do it. We have the different phases of the filters. The filters are executed in different stages. You have pre, post, and pre-cache. The pre-filters are executed even before you have any state. So you can add elements of configuration from based on what you find in the configuration that is passed through. The post is executed based on your state. And that is typically filters that are executing rights and disabling thing, enabling thing, hiding things and stuff. And the pre-cache ones are the one that is only executed before you put it in the cache. These are not executed the next time it's requested configuration, because then it comes from the cache and these filters are not executed then. So this is how you can manipulate the configuration and do basically more heavy stuff, because the next request it will not be executed. So, if you were so lucky to make your own filter, you can make a merge file. I will tell you a little bit later about where you should put your files and how you should put your customizations. But you make a merge file and put it in your custom folder, and it should look something like this. You define the face and you define the name of it. This will be merged into the complete filter configuration which the client uses for finding out which filter it has. We have this was making a filter from scratch. I'm not going to go into that, because the easier way, if you're making your own filters, and these are the filters that are basically have the capability of hiding, showing, enabling, and disabling components. So every node in the XML page, the page configuration, are allowing so-called custom checks. So if you put this section inside your control node of your page configuration, this will then execute the custom filter you made that is called explore check, And if it doesn't check out, it will put a disable property on that control. And that should be as easy as this. You make your class, you implement the iCustomCheckFilter, you need to implement the iWeb object, and you decorate it with this. There's one function, it's called run, you get the XML node, you do your checks, you have access to superstate, everything you need inside there, and you set true or false based on whatever calculation you do, and that will, since the type here is disabled, the type could be hide, so it will then, in this case, put a disable property on the control, and the control will be disabled.
Sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Why do I have to deploy this TLL?
That have to be deployed in the solution, like in the bin folder of the web installation. So, in order to get like these kind of things into the existing page configuration, we have this filter called merge filter. And the worst thing you can do to an installation is to change or manipulate the original config files. Because on the next upgrade, you have to do it all over again, or you have to put your manipulated files over the new installation, and maybe there has been changes from our side since you did your customization and stuff. So that will make a lot of work. So the point of having merge files, which is uses, is to be able to merge in your customization into the configuration that actually will live over different versions of the CRM web client. And it's separated from all the original files from the client, and you have your own custom folder where you put your customizations, and it's easy to deploy. This is an example of adding a text box to your own text box actually to a control group in an existing in the existing contact page. So you make a file called myContactMerge, and the basic of the way this works is that the merge filter will find these IDs in the existing configuration file, and as long as it finds it, it will not add anything. So when it finds the control group with ID main group, it will probably not find a control with ID what text box. So okay, then I have to add this. Then the filter will add this node here into this controls node here. And the sum then will be that this text box is added to the full contact page configuration. I'm going to talk more about actions later. So this is not only for page configuration, the merge filter. So it's for the forward page configuration, and that is what I told you is ID based. It resolves where to put the configuration based on IDs. So as long as it finds the ID, it will parse in, and then once it doesn't find it anymore, it will put that node into the configuration. This can also be applied to menu configurations. Menu don't have ID, they have something called context and subcontext, so it will match the context and subcontext attributes, and then will insert your configuration based on that. The link hint, same kind of thing. It has a type and a subtype. It will search for this type and subtype and insert it there. If it doesn't find it, it will add it. Same with object mapping. And same with application configuration. Like if you want to add your a new page, a new current, a new JS file, or so, this filter will then add it. The merge has actions. You can actually have the different actions based on what you want to do when it finds the node or doesn't find the node. The default action is that it tries to merge what you have into the existing configuration. You have an option of saying that it should replace. So if you find a control and you have you want to change that one to your customization, you put merge action replace on that node, and it will replace the whole content of that node with your node. So if you want to exchange a whole control group or even a whole view with your own stuff, you just find by ID the view and you add merge action replace, and you will then replace the whole view with your stuff. Also, if you want to remove stuff, you can have a merge file that the only thing it does is remove components from the page configuration. Then you just add the merge action remove, and it will remove everything below that. So, like I said, this is the files that are that can be merged, and that means that you can put your own merge files on this into your folder, and it will then manipulate the existing installation. So you have application, your object mapping, filter list, the columns of what the archive provider should show, what happens when you click on a row, menus, and all the pages. So this is how you add a page. So you give notice to the web application that you have this page exists. So you make your own file, so ApplicationConfiguration.merge, and you do like this. You follow the same structure as the original file, and as long as it finds this structure, it will find that, oh, I don't have any page with ID UI Proto, oh, I will add this. So this will be part of the application configuration. Same with object mapping. I have this. I want to. This actually, this is a way to replace the existing contact entity data handler. So you have found out that you want to do some extra stuff when you load or save the contact card. So what you do is say the mapping name is contact entity data handler. That already exists in the client. So what you're telling here that this mapping name here should now point to my contact entity data handler, my own. So you have made your own contact entity data handler, and everybody that refers to that type in the page configuration system will now use your contact entity data handler.
It's instead of and not in addition to, right?
It's instead of.
Okay.
Menu, if you want to add items to the menu, you can do something like this. The clue here is the context and the subcontext. That will, once it finds the match of those two, it will add this stuff. So here you can add your own menu items. This is fairly complex. You should read more about menu system because that's not easy to understand. And the menu configuration file is huge, so it's hard to find what you're looking for, I admit. So what I know about LinkHintTypes, the archives, all archives uses LinkHintTypes to resolve what to do when you click on a row. So that is resides in the SO archive LinkHintTypes config, and it's I think only used by the archive control. I don't remember any other component that uses it, but that's a fairly big component in the system. So if you want to override, all toggle email folder rows, it actually that's actually a name for a row, and you want to do something else when you double click on that type of rows, you can do like this in a merge file. Link info, link info, and then you find the type of the row you're interested in and what subtype, like this is click, and you also have double click, and then you put your code in here. You wanted to do something else, so you can override it here. Yep. That is the fragments we already talked about. And here is another example of replacing a control. And there you see again the ID structure. This is expecting the ID structure on the original config to be like this. And this is where it could break, because from version to version. So this is what you need to check when you are upgrading, that the page configuration still has this structure. So it requires the same structure in order to inject this part here. And I'm pretty sure that there's very rarely changes to that structure from version to version. We have this system now for almost 10 years, and it's been some pages when now rewritten and restructured. Of course, the structure will change, but it's been mainly the same for a long time. So here you see the merge action attribute. So on this node, you want it to replace the main group to that text box with this content here. So this will replace control with this ID, with this. So here you can see, I don't know how I'm doing on time here. When did I start again? 40 minutes. Okay. This is the follow structure of our configuration files. This is resides in the web application under app data. This follow structure is actually important because when you make a custom path folder, you need to put your custom files into the structure of that client then, or else it won't find them. But inside web, you can organize as you want. The system will find it anyway. You don't have to do anything. Yes, they can win as many folders as you like. So when you're gonna add your custom files, you make an entry in the web config file. I think I have an example of where later, and you specify, and it has to start with custom path, and you can add whatever behind it, because I guess sometimes there are several people that makes customization to an installation, and you don't want to mix your files with others' files. So you can add a custom path, and we support as many custom paths as you want. And inside that folder of your custom path, you can host both full config files, if you have your own pages or dialogues, and merge files. Yes. I think I talked about this. As I said, the cache will then prevent the system to perform very slow by caching the finished product, as I speak. So yeah, we have talked about this. A little tip about when you're doing stuff like this, you sometimes and often and many times wondering, why isn't this working? Why isn't this happening? There's a little tool you can run that called Diagnostics ASPX instead of default ASPX. You will get this screen. In this drop-down, you will get all the configuration files that it know of, and you can see how it looks below by selecting, and you can flush it. So here, when you do add a merge file into your custom folder, and you choose this, you should see where it come in here. It's nice to see if it, and if it doesn't appear, there's something wrong. Okay. So, adding a page. I'll show you some few steps of how you add a page to the SuperOffice. Usually you want to just add, example, you add a button to the navigation panel on the side. The 4 steps you need to do: add a custom path, add in that custom path, add a merge file that adds entry into the application configuration, add in the navigation panel config, you add a button that executes an SO protocol that actually starts your page, which you also add in your custom path. So in the web config, you will put in the client configuration provider section, you add a key with custom path, whatever, to where you have your custom files. During development, I highly recommend that you put cache configuration false, so you don't have to flush all the time. Yep. And the new page you made, you put in that folder under web client, web, and then your page configuration. And I will recommend, if you're going to make a new page, that you use these common components. This splitter panel is the panel that holds these 3 cards that makes it possible to resize this thing, these 3 cards. When you want to use a card like with tabs, I recommend you use the SO tab card. That will make this. Make 1 tab for each view it contains. I recommend that for the views you use SO view. And for grouping controls, you use SO control. This is the outline of a page configuration for your new page. You have the splitter panel, the SO tab card, the SO view, and SO controller. And inside there, you put your controls. Dialog. This is an example of the control you will put as an example. Maybe you merge that into the SO navigation panel config. You add a SO button and you unclick, you do the dialog open with a name, and this is the clue, the EW simple. That is what you call the page that you added in the application configuration. This will resolve and then start looking for the page which is named EU simple. And also there's a naming convention, so you need to call it SO EW simple page.config. Recommended types for making a simple dialog. A simple dialog is like this. It has no header, and it's like just a dialog with a button bar here. You have the SO dialog panel, SO simple dialog card. This is basically standard panel card views with styles that makes it look okay in the dialog. most of the difference between an SO panel and SO dialog panel is the styling. The functionality is pretty much the same. An example of the dialog. The dialog, we have a footer section here. Use the type SO dialog simple footer view and you will get a footer with no extra stress attached, and you can use OK cancel button bar. Very nice bar. This is for a more like dialog with a tabbed view inside. Typically our appointment dialog is like that. Different kind of types you use for getting a header, and I will show you later. This is just an example of the structure. And in order to get that heading, tabbed, and footer thing, the configuration setting for the SO dialog card. This has a own config session where you specify that I want this view, I want to be the header, these view I want to be tab views, and these views I want to be in the footer. Okay, moving along. I think I need to speed up actually. I'm going to show you how to add your own JavaScript, because when you make a page, or even if you make adjustment to an existing page or dialog, you may want to add your own JavaScripts to do some kind of calculations or whatever. The recommended way is to make yourself an SO application configuration merge file. It doesn't have to be named that, by the way. The thing that the merge filter looks for is this. So you can call it whatever you want, .merge. It will find this and know, okay, it's that kind of file, so it will apply the right type of filter. So you can call it whatever you want. This is how you include your own JavaScript. This will be added to all the other scripts, and I think it will be added to the end, so all other scripts are loaded before this. But there are other ways to add your scripts. Thinking of it now, I'm not sure how you're going to execute that script without adding script. So now you need to add script to add script. I don't know. Anyway, there's a possibility to actually in the configuration, we have a type called SO Script Manager. The SO Script Manager will actually be able to add scripts. So you can, in your configuration, page configuration, tell that I want to add this script. But I will highly recommend to use this as the way you add scripts. Yeah, that's how you add your scripts. And this is the Ajax methods is like the it's not a REST call, but it's a Ajax. It's a quick call that we use a lot to populate things without refreshing the whole page. Do small calculations or fetching the MDO drop-downs and the archive control uses these to get their data. It's because we don't want the data of the archive to be bundled with the HTML of the page, because that will be very, very slow. You can make your own Ajax methods. If you add your own scripts, maybe you want to make your own Ajax methods, and you can. It's very easy. You just make a class, you register it with an SO web object. Remember, every time you use this decoration, you need to add the interface of iWeb object. That's very important. And then you can call it from your script through your Ajax method dispatcher. your name of where the Ajax method lives, and then a lot of parameters behind it. I'm going to talk a little bit about currents before I go into the other stuff. Currents. Current is basically state. Current is what lives from request to request. So that we use it for many things. We use it as what are the current contact, what are the current project, what are the current sale, and things like that. So we know the client browser side knows and the server side knows that the current contact has the ID of 40. So this is how we can know that we are talking about the same contact. These are also stored in the database, so when you log out, the current state will be persisted in the database. So that makes what you see the next time you log in is supposed to be the last thing you saw when you logged out. And that's why we know you are on the contact 40, because we stored it in the database. Also, if you are standing on a contact card with the contact ID 40 and you open an appointment dialog, the appointment dialog doesn't need to be told that the contact is 40, because it just asks the current system, what is the current contact? It's 40. So then it adds the contact 40 in its field. So that's how we use the current system, and you can make your own currents if you need. So if you want to do something that we want to persist over requests or even over sessions, you can add your own. And that is in the same configuration section as the pages. You have a little section with currents, and there you can add your own current. You name it, and you say, is this something that we want to store? And we even have providers that will handle these currents. The SO protocol provider, I don't know if this is actually legal, but the SO protocol provider ensures that the system is consistent at all times, because when you tell the system through an SO protocol that person ID is 6 and nothing else, this part here will say, okay, then I have to check, are the contact ID, is this person belonging to the current contact ID I have? If not, okay, then I have to resolve what are the person's contact, and then I find the contact, and then I change the contact current also, so they are consistent. So then you know that if I have a person ID 5, the contact ID is the contact that is that belongs to this person. So this is the logic that is this protocol provider that's ensuring that it is consistent. And you can make your own providers that calculate stuff like that. But that's more like hardcore. Nobody has done that. Okay, controls. The whole thing is built of controls. Everything's controls. You have the tiniest controls. That's the text box. This is a tiny control. You have the control group is a control that contains controls. The view is a control that contains control groups, and so on and so on and so on. So everything here is controls. And you might want to make your own. Make a different kind of logic to your control. And it's easy, I say. An example of the code. You decorate it. This is the recommended way. You could also add it to the ObjectMapping config file and see the type, expandable control, and point to the assembly where it lives. This is easier. This is you just put the decoration with the object interface, put it in a assembly in the bin folder, and the client will automatically find it and know about it. You might need to put a reference to your assembly in the dynamic load section of the web config, if you know that one, because sometimes it doesn't discover